was a close call for some Shell Beach residents after last week's rain caused a mudslide in the Wildfire burn scar. KSBY's Megan Healy gives us a look at what's left to clean up after the storm and what it's costing residents.
Residents in the Spyglass neighborhood say they dodged a bullet with the recent rainstorm. Back in June, the Wildfire scorched nearly 400 acres on this hillside, and the rain in the last couple of days caused the mud, debris, and vegetation to slide onto the streets and get extremely close to some of these homes. Buckets are getting filled up with mud and hauled off. Crews scooped up and filled 3 dump trucks worth of mud, rocks, and other debris that slid down the hill behind these Shell Beach homes.
We're exactly backed up to the hillside. As of darkness Thursday, there was no sign of anything coming down.
But then Chris Finch saw firefighters canvassing the area around midnight Friday, daylight revealing the mudslide. It's estimated more than 75 tons of material spilled onto the roadways of Costa Brava and Calle Correa down to Barcelona Road.
Emptying it from the ditch so that if we get more rain, the ditch won't have mud flowing into people's backyards.
2 close calls for this Spyglass neighborhood. First, the Wildfire in June, and then heavy rain and mudslides in January.
The scariest times in my life was when we were exiting and looking out the back window, the rear window, and seeing fire in my backyard.
Insurance agent David Tennant says in most cases, fire coverage is included in homeowners insurance policies, but it's getting harder for them to buy.
With the fires that have been going on, we've been seeing some pricing increases, and we've also seen a little bit of tightening on some of the areas they're willing to write in.
Flooding, which also includes mudslides, require separate policies. For homes in high-risk flood zones, it can cost up to $5,000 annually.
Well, up to 30% of all losses on floods are out of high-risk flood zones.
But I have flood insurance. He said, we don't need it. We don't need it. I said, let's get it in case we have a tsunami.
While last week's rainstorm didn't reach tsunami level, heavy rains did remind homeowners to be prepared and count their blessings. In Shell Beach, I'm Megan Healy, KSBY News.
If there is an area with no HOA, the city says its crews would step in, but if disaster strikes on private property, then the owner is responsible.
Portions of Highway 1 are reopening after the road collapsed from heavy rain and mudslides. Caltrans officials say the southern road closure will be moved up from Ragged Creek to Willow Creek Road. Businesses on the north of Rat Creek in Monterey County are open, but businesses on the south side of Rat Creek will open as soon as Caltrans can clear the highway. A complete reopening of the road has not been determined. Amtrak train services between San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara are temporarily suspended. KSBY News reporter Alexa Bertola explains why and what options travelers have.
If you were planning on taking the train from here in San Luis Obispo to Santa Barbara, you're going to have to take the bus instead. Now this impacts Pacific Surfliner, Coast Starlight, and Union Pacific. This Coast Starlight passenger train in San Luis Obispo is at a standstill. That's because crews are repairing damage to the train tracks. Union Pacific said in an email that it was a washout of the tracks.
I actually didn't get much of a heads up at all. It was just they said that they'd already sent me a new itinerary via email, but they didn't tell me that there was an additional time switch.
We got told yesterday, we got a call from the train station saying how we got to arrive here a little bit earlier, get on the bus at about 2:10, and then take a 5-hour trip all the way up to Oakland just to be able to get home.
Pacific Surfliner sending out a couple of tweets saying the tracks are impassable from winter storms.
It's an inconvenience, but life happens, I reckon.
Passengers have been rerouted all over the map, having to take the bus.
Santa Barbara to Bakersfield on bus, from Bakersfield to Hanford on train, then from Hanford to here via bus again.
For passenger Zachary Davis, there was no compensation for the switch from business class to coach. It's also added on hours to trips.
It had about 7 to 10 hours to our trip.
We're told the damage is just north of the Lompoc Surf Station near Vandenberg Air Force Base. We asked the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo Rail Corridor Agency for a look at the damage, but we're told they don't have any images to share due to the sensitive nature of the area. Crews are working around the clock on culvert repairs and bringing in rock to stabilize the track and surrounding area. The Union Pacific Railroad says the work, however, is taking longer than expected. This is not only due to the extent of the damage, but also the remote location and the need to access the site through sensitive areas of the Air Force Base. Meanwhile, with train service suspended until further notice just north of Goleta, passengers will have to travel by bus for the time being.
It's kind of annoying, really, but I mean, it's not necessarily their fault for the rain, you know, washing that out, they got to fix it.
A specific time frame for completion is still not known, but Union Pacific anticipates later this week. In San Luis Obispo, Alexa Bertola, KSBY News.
According to Union Pacific, several freight customers are impacted by the train track closure as well.
A follow-up on a deadly crash in Santa Barbara County. Police identified the man killed in Friday's crash off Highway 101 near Los Olivos. CHP says 67-year-old Thomas Vernon Smith of Guadalupe was driving at about 7 p.m. on Friday when he tried passing another car in the fast lane. The vehicles sideswiped each other, causing both drivers to spin out and hit different trees. First responders pronounced Smith dead at the scene. The other driver was taken to the hospital for moderate injuries.
Atascadero police are investigating a deadly crash that happened off Highway 41 on Saturday. They say it may be the result of a street race. It happened near Fog Hollow Drive, where police say the driver of a blue Mustang lost control of the car and rolled over before crashing into an embankment and a telephone pole. Investigators are trying to determine whether drugs or alcohol were involved.
It's been less than 2 weeks since 3 shootings happened in Lompoc within 48 hours of each other. Tonight, Lompoc City leaders are meeting to discuss recent crimes and violence within the community. KSBY's Melissa Newman joins us live now in Lompoc with a preview of the event. Melissa?
Richard, when we spoke with the mayor of Lompoc last month, she said the violence in this community keeps her up at night. But with the pandemic greatly impacting the city's budget and many decisions requiring a full city council support, there might not be a quick fix. Public safety has long been identified as the top priority for the city of Lompoc, but finding the money to cover the expenses that come along with it has been difficult. Momentum was gained in June of 2020 when $300,000 was budgeted to restore 3 positions within the Lompoc Police Department. But the city says so far only 40 of 47 positions within the department have been filled. A recent sales tax and cannabis tax revenue were meant to generate extra funds for the city to potentially use on new partnerships and initiatives, but instead, the city says this money has gone to cover the general fund, which has been dwindling during the pandemic. Monday night, the city of Lompoc is hosting a panel discussion that's expected to include topics of gangs and violence within the community, what led to the current situation the city is facing, and what actions are being taken and could be taken in the future to address these issues. Panelists of tonight's discussion include the mayor of Lompoc, the chief of police, and organizations like the Boys and Girls Club. The discussion starts tonight at 7 p.m. I'll have a full recap tonight at 10 and 11. For now, reporting live in Lompoc, Melissa Newman, KSBY News.
All right, Melissa, thank you. Community members were asked to submit their questions for this event by noon this afternoon, as the community will not be able to speak live in the meeting. We have the Zoom link to this meeting for those who'd like to participate posted on ksby.com.
In the latest COVID-19 news, researchers at one university issue an alarming new prediction on the pandemic's death toll. Researchers at the University of Washington predict the spread of COVID-19 variants in the U.S. could lead to another 200,000 lives lost by the end of spring. A third case of the South African strain was confirmed over the weekend in Maryland, and at least 460 cases of the UK strain have been reported across more than 30 states.
Viruses cannot mutate if they don't replicate. And if you stop their replication by vaccinating widely and not giving the virus an open playing field, you will not get mutations.
1 in 13 Americans have received at least the first dose of a vaccine, but wider vaccination efforts are being slowed by strained supplies and winter weather. Some health experts are urging the U.S. to stop reserving second doses and prioritize first shots for as many Americans as possible.
San Luis Obispo County is reporting nearly 300 new cases of COVID-19 over the weekend and today. The county also confirmed 9 COVID-19 related deaths, pushing the total to 177. Health officials are reporting 15 of the county's 38 ICU beds are currently taken, 13 by COVID-19 patients. Santa Barbara County health officials report 265 new cases of COVID-19 today and 7 more deaths. To date, there have been 298 deaths attributed to the virus in Santa Barbara County. 63 of the county's ICU beds are currently occupied.
In Santa Barbara County, the county has administered more than half of its 51,000 vaccine doses. St. Louis Obispo County has given out first vaccine doses to more than 15,000 people. 3,100 of those people have received second doses as well.
San Luis Obispo County health officials say more COVID-19 vaccine appointments are becoming available. The county is ready to administer as many as 3,000 doses a day as the supply increases. More than 5,000 first dose appointments have been booked at the 3 vaccine clinics in Paso Robles, San Luis Obispo, and Arroyo Grande. To check for availability, continue to go on the county website or you can give them a call.
Santa Barbara County Public Health's mobile COVID-19 testing site is now open in Lompoc. The site is located at Ryan Park. It's open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday for a minimum of 2 weeks. After that, the site will move somewhere else in the county. Lompoc Mayor Janelle Osborne says testing is a very important part of managing the pandemic.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Hovde will rejoin us with more on potential rain coming to the Central Coast. First, though, here's a look at Avila Beach earlier today thanks to 805 webcams.
And coming up, a brutal winter storm slams the East Coast. What's in store for the area this week's nor'easter?
Plus, the TSA's new mask mandate goes into effect tomorrow. What's acceptable to wear while using public transportation?
Visit coping-19.org.
Tonight, millions of Americans are dealing with a major blast of winter that's bringing blizzard-like conditions to the Northeast. Here's a look live now at downtown Philadelphia. Lots of snow and ice on the road there and across the area. Storms also bringing potential for power outages and coastal flooding from Georgia to Maine. Millions are under storm watches and warnings. This nor'easter could bring the biggest snowfall in New York City in the last 5 years. Mayor Bill de Blasio has declared a state of emergency.
Stay off the road, stay off the streets and sidewalks, stay inside. If there's any way you can avoid traveling today.
Several states have also canceled COVID-19 vaccination appointments until after the storm passes. For more on what millions on the East Coast can expect, we're going to bring in KSBY Chief Meteorologist Dave Hovde. Dave?
Richard, I mean, look at the video there and take a look at what a drive in Connecticut looked like just a couple of hours ago. I mean, the snow is coming down, it is piling up, and we're not done with the system yet. It is going to continue to pummel that area through tomorrow. So, I mean, let's just take a look at Baltimore, Maryland. This is on the south side of the storm where currently things are looking a little better. But when we take a look at the radar, you can see there's snow here. Yeah, that Baltimore area cleared a little bit, but it's surrounded. Even Washington, D.C. is seeing some snow accumulation from this system. And it's not just snow, it is also significant wind as well. So this morning, the low was off the coast. Now it's moving up the coast and cold air is coming in behind it. By the way, after this storm system departs, a major blast of cold air is on the way for the central section of the country and the east. So yeah, this is what Mayor de Blasio was talking about in New York City. Even our model is conservatively saying at least 16 inches. But if you're looking at anything more than that, yeah, up to 2 feet is absolutely possible. And then you add the wind on top of that. They call this area the megalopolis, basically from Washington through Baltimore, New York City, and Philadelphia, Boston, because so many people are crammed into that corridor, and this storm is hitting that area hard. This is a South Coast time lapse. You can see out into the channel, looking pretty good from up on the peaks today. And pretty nice right now out at Avila Beach, still 53 degrees, just partly cloudy skies there. In Santa Barbara, the camera's in night mode already, but I kind of like it. You can see some of the lights of the city here underneath the mesa looking pretty good at 54 degrees. Elsewhere, we're 60 at Cuyama, 52 San Luis, 55 Paso, 55 Santa Ynez, and Lompoc right now. We have 54 degrees, 51 for us in Santa Maria. The winds are unremarkable. There are no advisories, but we are going to see more cloud cover starting to push in. Low clouds in here, frontal boundary up there. Yes, rainfall is possible, but a big change from the outlook for this time period from last week, where it really looked like we could see quite a bit of rain, quarter to maybe an inch of rain. But now it looks like we'll be lucky to see much to measure. And what's the issue? Well, we've got high pressure in here. The storm track is carrying the surface low far too far to the north. So what we're going to get is a little frontal slide by us, a little tap as it moves by over the course of tomorrow into early Wednesday. Then after that, it looks like it gets quiet for a while. There you can see the low clouds. We could see mist and drizzle overnight and early tomorrow near the coast. But there you can see the clouds kind of expanding through morning. It's really more of a mostly cloudy day, especially northern San Luis Obispo County. But ultimately, some clouds start penetrating into Santa Barbara County. For us on the south coast, might actually be plenty of sunshine. Again, the frontal passage moves through. We can pick up a little bit of rain here and there. Our initial concern was, well, coming off of 3 to 15 inches of rain, would we be able to handle another storm system? Well, if this is what we're going to get, under 0.15 of an inch, then the answer is absolutely. And then after that, it looks really dry, essentially, for the rest of the month, more ridging in place. February is a month we pile on rain here on the Central Coast. That's why we often talk about miracle Marches. If we fall behind, then we really need March to come through, because after that, statistically speaking, rainfall totals really fall off. We are still running a bit of a deficit here for the seasonal rainfall. I know we just got hammered, but really the winter's been very quiet. Okay, with all the clouds moving in tomorrow, upper 50s and low 60s would be about it. We did fairly well today, and a few 70s were even around. Tomorrow, I don't think we're going to see much in the way of warming. Now, again, once we get into Santa Barbara County, south of Santa Maria, we're going to see more sunshine. So the south coast could actually see something in the mid-60s. There's the extended forecast. After the system pulls out, moving into the upcoming weekend, temperatures start running toward and into the lower 70s as we start that drier run. More later. Nina, back to you.
Dave, thank you. We still do not know when or if high school sports will be played this year. Coming up in sports, Casey Busher caught up with one Morro Bay student athlete who continues to work and grind for his next opportunity.
And President Joe Biden meets with Senate Republicans today after proposing a massive new COVID relief bill.
Weakest Link tonight on NBC.
High school student athletes are continuing to use this time to work out and get better, although there is no direction on when or if their seasons will be played this year. A strong work ethic, something that many people want but few people actually have, especially when no one is watching.
Even though we're not playing, there's still an opportunity to come out here and get better every day.
That's the case for Morro Bay wrestler and football player Dylan Turner. He's continuing to grind during the long off season, not knowing when he will get the chance to play in a game or wrestle in a match.
Me and a couple guys, we've been lifting and training at the field for about 4 months now.
Something that may take you by surprise is what Dylan Turner has overcome in the past year.
Dislocated my shoulder in the beginning of the wrestling season last year, and I tore some cartilage and tore my labrum. So I didn't know that at the time, but I missed most of the season.
Turner needed surgery, and because it wasn't considered essential due to COVID-19,
Yes, sir.
he wasn't able to get the surgery until April.
And then it was 4 months of physical therapy, recovery process, and then finally, since then, I've just been training and doing what I can.
And on top of overcoming his injury, Turner, alongside high school athletes across the state, have struggled to find clarity during this time without a clear vision of when their seasons will begin or if they will even get to play this year.
I just don't lose hope. So even if we don't, I just got to keep training for my senior year next year. Eventually the goal is to play at the next level in college.
What keeps him going? The desire and dream of playing at the next level. And for many student athletes, they need their final seasons to get recognized by schools. That's what motivates Dylan Turner.
It's just important to keep getting better and keep working. We want to play really bad. It's hard for me to watch some of the seniors this year lose their motivation. It's hard for them to stay motivated and train because they don't know if they're ever going to play again.
A group of Morro Bay football players and head coach Jake Goosen Brown plan to start a 7-on-7 league in the next month so they will be able to play football again. The Wilson factory in Ada, Ohio has been very busy recently. The production line has been creating footballs the NFL will use during Super Bowl 55 in Tampa next Sunday. This is one of the busiest weeks of the year for the factory. The Super Bowl footballs are all handmade especially for this game. Each ball goes through a 20-step process, including testing sensors that are now built inside the balls before they are tested and weighted. Wilson has been making official footballs for the NFL since 1941. That's all for sports. Back to you in studio.
Another round of COVID-19 economic relief could include stimulus checks coming up, where the money for stimulus checks comes from before going out nationwide.
Plus, NASA astronaut and Cal Poly alum Victor Glover takes his second spacewalk today, what he worked on for 6 hours.
Lives.
Check on me.
In his first 100 days in office, President Biden faces a major test. Alice Barr has the latest on a counterproposal from Republican senators to Biden's original $1 trillion relief plan.
The president, who campaigned on his ability to work with both parties, faces his first big test today, welcoming 10 Republican senators to the White House for negotiations over a critical COVID relief bill. But before the meeting even began, the White House dimming hopes that President Biden is willing to go as far as Republicans want.
The risk is not that it is too big, this package. The risk is that it is too small. And that remains his view, and it's one he'll certainly express today.
The GOP group's $600 billion counter proposal, a far cry from the president's $1.9 trillion plan. The Republican package offers the same money for vaccinations, but reduces stimulus checks and targets them to lower-income Americans.
If you look at the administration's plan, you could have a family with 3 kids making almost $300,000 a year getting a check.
The GOP plan also strips down funding for reopening schools by nearly 90%. And with money for cash-strapped state and local governments uncertain, some Republicans are calling for broader action.
We need to go big, and if we waste some money now, well, we waste some money. But absolutely, we've got too many people hurting.
With former President Trump's impeachment trial looming next week, Democrats worry time is running out for a bipartisan COVID deal. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And adding to the time crunch for negotiations, COVID relief from the last package expires at the end of the month for things like unemployment benefits and food assistance.
The TSA is going to start enforcing President Biden's mask mandate for passengers using mass transit tomorrow. Masks and gaiters need to have at least 2 or more layers of breathable fabric and fit snugly. Scarves and bandanas do not meet the new mask mandate standard. The order applies to any form of public transportation, on board planes, trains, buses, boats, subways, taxis, and ride shares. Violators may be denied entry, boarding, or continued transport and could also face civil penalties. In the latest news tonight, another round of stimulus checks could be part of the next economic relief bill. Joe St. George explains where money for that comes from.
This is the U.S. Mint headquarters in Washington, D.C., quite literally the building in charge of printing money. But when it comes to where stimulus and unemployment money comes from, the printing press, or the U.S. Mint, actually isn't involved at all.
But in order for Congress to pass these trillion-dollar laws that eventually results in real money in your wallet, the Treasury Department has to borrow the money.
Unlike you or me, the Treasury Department can borrow as much as they want. They can borrow money from private investors, foreign entities, and other governments. Basically, the Treasury Department issues a bond or a note that is really an IOU, promising to pay back the money with a little bit of interest one day.
But the biggest buyer of these IOUs right now is an entity called the Federal Reserve. They have the power to create money.
But again, they aren't printing anything. Instead, they are simply typing a number into their computer, updating their spreadsheet, and like magic, a digital currency is borrowed by the Treasury Department. All that borrowing gives the Treasury Department the ability to issue those stimulus checks. So, is there a risk to all of this? Well, there is a word that scares economists. The word is inflation. That's when there's too much money in circulation and there aren't enough goods. That's when money becomes nearly worthless, like in some third world countries where pictures like this emerge. Now, economists don't believe we're at risk for that right now, as long as all of this is managed correctly and our economy is still producing more than we are borrowing. And while all of this may sound complicated, that's how you get the stimulus check. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
And happening today, drivers in the Los Alamos area can expect traffic delays. Crews will begin reconstruction on the bridges on Highway 101 at the interchange of Highway 135 in Los Alamos. Drivers can expect one-way reversing traffic control on Highway 135 between Main Street and San Antonio Boulevard. The construction is set to take place starting this morning through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and overnight from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
San Luis Obispo is planning to repave several streets downtown starting this summer. The city wants to improve accessibility for pedestrians, bicyclists, and wheelchairs. Crews will be adding new curb ramps while improving crosswalks and bike lanes. This project is expected to last 5 months and will cost about $2.9 million. The city is encouraging residents to share feedback at its virtual meeting on February 25th.
New pickleball courts are in the works for Mitchell Park in San Luis Obispo. City council members will discuss fund appropriation and approval tomorrow. They say an application for the grant was approved in December. The new pickleball courts could be installed by spring. City leaders are also working on enhancing safety at the park and improving lighting.
Cal Poly alum Victor Glover and fellow astronaut Mike Hopkins ventured out for a spacewalk outside the International Space Station today.
Open the thermal cover. Copy that. You have a go. You're going to put crew lock bag 2 in the airlock and retrieve the CP-13 bag.
This was Glover's second ever spacewalk after his first walk last Wednesday. He and Hopkins spent 6 hours finishing battery upgrades and installing high-definition cameras outside of the ISS. Additional spacewalks are planned for the end of February.
The Santa Maria Library is helping local readers celebrate Black History Month. They're offering a special book bag featuring Black authors or characters. 4 books and a reading list are included. Grab-and-go book bags are available on a first-come, first-served basis through next Monday. The library is open for sidewalk pickup.
Another tradition that will be forced to change due to the coronavirus pandemic is Groundhog Day. Don't worry though, Punxsutawney Phil will still make an appearance. However, there will not be any in-person attendance or guests at Gobbler's Knob. The Punxsutawney Groundhog Club says they'll host virtual events and interactions instead of in-person events. The Super Bowl is less than a week away. Coming up, how large sporting events like it can affect host cities and the communities around them.
And how researchers from Stanford University say wildfire pollution has affected air quality across the West Coast.
KSBY News is committed to telling stories of creativity as the Central Coast works to rebound. And tonight, ahead of Sunday's Super Bowl, Maya Rodriguez looks at how sporting events like that can pay off for a host city.
In just days, the eyes of the football world will focus on Tampa, Florida.
Hey, let's go!
Site of Super Bowl 55. Preparations here, years in the making, along with a $160 million renovation to Raymond James Stadium, including $10 million of federal money for COVID-19 related upgrades. But do major investments by host cities pay off?
Generally, the return on an investment that's required by a destination is significant.
Jeremy Jordan is Associate Dean of the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management at Temple University. He says studies on the economic impact of games can be subjective and aren't always reliable.
You could have 2 or 3 groups studying the same event and come up with very different results.
With that said, the return on investment depends on the sporting event. For example, the Olympics require a lot more infrastructure, billions of dollars worth, for building facilities that may not get used again after the games are done. The Super Bowl, though, is different. Take Tampa Stadium.
So obviously the Buccaneers play there. University of South Florida uses it for their football game. If you look at it from a sustainability perspective, it probably is worth the investment.
Though this year's Super Bowl won't have quite the impact it might have had because of the pandemic. And Jeremy Jordan says future hosts of national sporting events should take note.
It will be interesting how long it takes for people to feel comfortable to go sit in a stadium of 70,000 people and attend a sporting event. It doesn't mean they're not going to consume it, but the patterns of consumption may be different.
But there is one major positive to cities that host these events.
To say that you hosted the Super Bowl, or obviously that you hosted something like the Olympics, it creates the perception that this is a first-class destination.
A kind of branding, it turns out, that money can buy. I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Hovde will join us with another look at your local weather forecast. First, though, here's a look at Shell Beach from earlier today. This is thanks to surfline.com.
Life you love.
New tonight, actor Dustin Diamond, best known for playing Screech on Saved by the Bell, has died. A spokesperson confirms Diamond passed away this morning, just 3 weeks after he was diagnosed with lung cancer. His manager says Diamond was taken off breathing machines in an attempt to move him to hospice care, but passed away with loved ones nearby. He was 44 years old.
Legendary singer Tony Bennett is battling Alzheimer's disease. The 94-year-old Bennett revealed his diagnosis in an interview with AARP magazine, saying he received the diagnosis in 2016. The interview indicates that so far Bennett has been spared some of the worst symptoms that can accompany the disease. Bennett has a new album coming out this spring that was recorded between 2018 and 2020. New report shows the coronavirus pandemic has hit nonprofit organizations especially hard. Johns Hopkins University estimates nonprofits lost more than 50,000 positions in December. The report shows nearly 1 million fewer nonprofit workers compared to the same time last year. The report estimates it could take at least 18 months for nonprofits to return to pre-pandemic employment levels.
The more time workers spend working from home, the more afraid their bosses are becoming about cybersecurity. A survey by Hayes Connor Solicitors shows 2 of 3 home workers who printed out sensitive documents did not properly destroy them, and 1 in 5 workers never received cybersecurity training. IT experts say companies can help protect their systems from hacking by issuing company computers to home workers. Wildfires across the western United States are becoming more regular, which could erase years of air pollution progress. Wildfires release microscopic pollutants small enough to get into the lungs and enter the bloodstream, increasing risk of heart attack and stroke. Researchers at Stanford University say the U.S. has been combating this kind of air pollution since 1990 by targeting factories and vehicle emissions.
But what's happening in the western United States over the last decade is a reversal of that progress. The air is actually getting dirtier. Wildfire is treated as kind of an act of God that no one is responsible for.
In 2018 alone, wildfires cost $28 billion in damage and $32 billion in health costs. Researchers believe fuel management like prescribed burns is critical, and investing in PPE and air filters in schools and senior living homes.
If you want to see Yosemite National Park, you will now need a reservation. Starting next Monday, visitors to the scenic park will need a reservation to enter. The National Park Service says it is a reaction to the high number of visitors and continued concerns caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The change only applies to people entering in their own vehicles, and people with annual or lifetime passes also need to make a reservation. You can make a reservation on the recreation.gov website.